Alright, now for something completely different. The last couple of episodes were on the long side and were somewhat taxing to make, so I thought this week I'd give myself a break and do something fun. Well, fun for me at least. To be honest, it doesn't even really have anything to do with atheism. This is going to require us jumping into the old TARDIS. TARDIS is kind of a funny name, maybe I should have just went with time machine. Anyway, and travel 9 years back into the past. Yes, the subject of this week's episode is a stale and crusty old Young Turks video in which Cenk goes off on one of my favorite musical artists, Marilyn Manson. And to give credit where credit is due, I became aware of this clip when the Drunken Peasants covered it recently. Now, I used to be a big Young Turks fan. I think two of the first podcasts that I ever subscribed to were TYT and Brian Dunning's Skeptoid, which I still listen to, even though it's now inundated with ads, players gotta earn money and all that. But I started becoming disillusioned with the Young Turks a couple of years back. They, especially Cenk, were sometimes intellectually dishonest in their coverage of stories having to do with Islamic terrorism. Then there was the whole Sam Harris debacle, and now this. And as petty as it sounds, this was almost the nail in the coffin for me. Sure, it's almost a decade old, and you shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater and all that. But it's not like Cenk was a kid. He was a grown man in his 30s when he made this video and went off on this kind of anti-Manson rant. And I don't mind if someone wants to fairly criticize or critique someone or something that I like. Adults should be able to have differences of opinion and still get along. What bothered me was how needlessly belligerent and ignorant Cenk seems in his criticism of Manson. But enough with this long-winded preamble. Let's get to it.
All right, Young Turks, let me tell you who I hate. Marilyn frickin' Manson.
So there's a little bit of the beautiful people. Hope it doesn't get me a copyright strike. TYT seem to have gotten away with it. So already, segment's just begun, and Cenk's already hot under the collar and uses the word hate. Hate, really? Granted, as a Manson fan, I'm biased, but how does someone hate Marilyn Manson? Even if you're a Christian or some uptight prick who doesn't like his image, etc., you still gotta admit the music's pretty kick-ass. Even if metal's not your cup of tea, you gotta admit the shit still rocks.
Now, every time we say it and we put it on YouTube...
Oh, man, and look at that. I usually think Manson looks pretty cool, but it's like they went out of their way to find the worst possible picture of him. He looks like someone dressed a wax mannequin of Nicolas Cage in drag.
And all of you guys who love Marilyn Manson... Look at this guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about, he's Marilyn Manson's so cool.
Well, yeah, he is pretty cool. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you're a fellow Manson fan, then you're probably well aware that at times he can be a belligerent, temperamental dick. We've probably all seen clips of him where he kind of clashes with other people, sometimes even members of his own band. I think relatively recently he toured with Rob Zombie and the two of them got into a feud and were talking shit about each other on stage. Two musicians I admire, at the time both well into their 40s and feuding like children. But that being said, I think Manson, generally speaking, usually comes across as a highly intelligent, charming, well-spoken, and witty individual. A really kind of laid-back and contemplative guy.
Dude, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man. Get a life. I'm not saying I'm cool, that's for sure.
Cool? Nah, I was almost gonna say something, but that's too easy. It involved a sweater vest.
But I'll tell you what, putting that stuff on your face and pretending to be so cool by doing stupid stuff, that doesn't make you cool. It makes you a total loser.
Being eccentric and wearing makeup makes you a loser. Seems to have worked out pretty well for Manson.
Well, Cenk, you're not the only one who's hating on Marilyn Manson right now.
Uh-huh.
His own bandmate wants to sue him because
Booyah.
Supposedly he's spending all this money on Nazi paraphernalia, and this is band money. Nazi paraphernalia, African masks, a skeleton of a 4-year-old Chinese girl, and swastika wall tiles.
Sounds like my Amazon wish list. Kidding.
All right, let me explain a couple things. First of all, African mask, okay, whatever. Sure, go nuts. Buy thousands. I don't really care, all right? Swastikas, you think you're cool, right? You think you're cool. You're not cool. You're a total frickin' loser.
Okay, so I agree with Cenk on the African masks, the swastikas / Nazi memorabilia, Personally, I wouldn't want any Nazi stuff in my home. I can see some exceptions, like if your grandpappy killed a Nazi with his bare hands and took his helmet and now it's a family heirloom or something like that. Or maybe if you're a World War II enthusiast in general and you have a broad collection of Ally and Axis memorabilia. Now, this reminds me of David Bowie. I'm a Bowie fan too, and I remember something in the news a long time ago about him getting in trouble for having a supposedly rather sizable collection of Nazi memorabilia. So although it's not for me, especially since it would probably prove rather awkward when you would have Jewish friends over, I think in the case of Manson and perhaps Bowie too, as far as I know, neither one of them is known for being racist or anti-Semitic. Well, David Bowie past tense, since he's no longer with us, unfortunately. I think it probably just has more to do with a morbid fascination with the dark side, so I don't really hold it all that much against them.
Like, oh yeah, I'm so rad, I'll get swastikas.
Rad? Really? I know this clip's from a long time ago, but it's not from the 80s.
Okay. All right, I don't want to get too heavy on it, but it's stupid, right? And then second of all, a 4-year-old Chinese girl's skull. F you.
Okay, so the skull of a 4-year-old Chinese girl. Now, I know there's a lot of eccentric people out there who collect medical oddities, etc. I can kind of see why someone might want a skull. It might be thought-provoking and interesting, and you could act out that famous scene from Hamlet. But even if I wanted one, I wouldn't want a child skull. That would just be too much for me. And adult or child, I think I would feel a certain ethical responsibility. Even though I'm an atheist, I'd still feel the weight of having the skull of a once living person in my home and feeling that it deserved a sufficient degree of human respect and dignity.
F, you're so cool. God, this guy's such a poser. He's the biggest poser in the whole wide world.
Now, this makes no sense. If he's a poser, meaning it's all for show, he's not really Mr. Dark and creepy behind the scenes, why would he be spending all of his money amassing a private collection of all this morbid stuff? If it's a private collection and he's decorating his home with it, this stuff obviously resonates with him on some personal level, so how does that make him a poser? And as a singer/musician myself who writes some really dark stuff, it's always been a pet peeve of mine when people accuse people like Manson of being posers. I think it shows a lack of understanding of the artistic mindset or the mindset of a performer. You might dress in a way on stage that you might not in quote-unquote real life, although in fairness, I believe Manson wears the makeup and stuff off stage too. And you may act over the top while performing, but that doesn't mean that it's fake or just an act. For many performers, I think Manson included, their stage persona is a real part of who they are. That part of them may get magnified or let out of its cage on stage, but that doesn't mean it's fake. It's a reflection of a genuine aspect of their personality. I doubt Rob Zombie or Marilyn Manson go home and say, I can't stand all that dark stuff. I'm gonna listen to Manilow and work on a paint-by-number of some kittens playing with a ball of yarn.
And for you to like him when he's obviously all he's doing is posing, man, you're a sucker. Go ahead, write all your silly little messages. Go ahead, hate, see what happens.
I'll do you one better. I'm making a video. That's what's happening, Janky. And my guess is people are gonna watch it and agree with me. How do you like them apples of Sodom? Little, Manson/Lost Highway reference there.
Well, he supposedly spent about $20 million. He's getting sued for $20 million. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that he also spent money on was a $150,000 rock for his girlfriend.
Yeah, Dita Von Teese or whatever, right? Yeah, that's what her name is. All right, she's got nice tits there. Congratulations.
So I almost forgot about this part. That really rubbed me the wrong way. He's ranting against the guy, dripping with contempt, and then glibly and disrespectfully comments on his former girlfriend's anatomy. Don't get me wrong, I actually agree. Dita Von Teese is gorgeous, but I wouldn't crudely and publicly comment on the anatomy of the significant other of someone I was trashing. Cenk's criticizing Manson's behavior, etc., then he turns around and acts like a pig. And as others have pointed out, could you imagine Cenk trying to get away with that now in this hyper PC climate? I wonder what Anna would think if he said that now.
Okay. Now, I don't know if what the guy is saying is true. His bandmate, Stephen Byer Jr. If what he's saying is true, then F you again, right? You taking everybody's money and spent $150,000. Poser. What happened? I thought you were like, hey, rad and stuff. And so is a rad guy? What does he do? He did just like a total sucker for materialism. Goes and buys a $150,000 ring for his girlfriend. Pussy.
Buying your girlfriend or fiance a ring makes you a poser? I fail to see the logic in your thinking, if there is any. And once again, rad. And if I can, just as a caveat, I want to be honest and say I don't know much about the lawsuits they're referring to or whatever Manson's net worth may have been at the time. But if he can afford it, if he can afford to buy his girlfriend, this expensive ring, why not? It's his money. And when did Manson ever state he's anti-materialism? He's Marilyn Manson, not Mahatma Gandhi. A rock star spending a lot of money. Wow, so unheard of. Sarcasm intended. And also, why does being successful and rich and buying your girlfriend an expensive present make you a quote-unquote pussy?
Okay, how you like me now?
Well, actually, I like you significantly less than before I watched this, and that's saying something.
And if he spent the bad money, he's definitely got to pay that back. But that's what, let the courts figure that out. I don't know who's right or who's wrong. And by the way, Stephen Byer Jr., calm down, dude. $20 million? You had me until you sued him for $20 million. Really? He took that much of your money? No, he didn't. You never made $20 million in your life. So bring that down to $1 or $2 million, and I'm going to be completely on your side. All right, I think that's enough for today. You got plenty of material there. Go nuts. Did I say I hate Marilyn Manson? I do.
You say you hate him, but you're using his song as bumper music for your show. Have to say it's an improvement. So I'm going to call this episode a wrap, and I know I have listeners out there who are still young Turks fans, so please don't take all this too seriously. It's not like I'm waging jihad on the young Turks. I just felt like Cenk was at his dickiest. I don't think that's a word, but he was being an awful dick in this clip. And as a Marilyn Manson fan, I wanted to chime in. And even if it wasn't Marilyn Manson, I just thought his attitude was really off-putting in this particular clip. But anyway, you guys know the drill. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Most likely you're watching this on YouTube. If you want to help the show out monetarily, you can go to patreon.com/theweekindoubt and help the show out for as little as 99 cents a month. All right, brothers and sisters, until next week. And I'm going to use the beautiful people. Here we go.